This is a running total that I'm calculating using SQL in Databricks. Now, if you've ever tried to do a calculation like that one in SQL, you'll know that it can get really complicated fast. But don't worry, because in this video, we're hopefully going to be simplifying some of that. We're going to be talking about a concept called window frames, which is this super simple syntax that controls which rows are used in a window function. Now, by the end of this video, the hope is that you'll know the difference between rows and range, and that you'll be able to write complex analytic queries like the ones that I just showed you. So we're going to jump back into the computer in just a second. But first, if you could go ahead and like this video and subscribe, it would mean a lot. It also lets me know that you're enjoying this content and what I'm producing is useful, which really kind of is the goal here. So if I'm not doing that, well, I might have to pivot. All right, let's jump back into the computer and let's start with a quick review as to what a window function actually does in SQL. So here we are back in Databricks, and I've written just a quick rank function here, which is a window function. And I'm using two keywords. I'm using partition by and then order by. And what that means is that within each category, it's creating a rank based off of date actual. And right now it's creating that rank, kind of in an ascending order, but I could also add a keyword right here and create it in a descending order. Now, depending on the calculation that you're doing with the window function, both the partition by and the order by can be optional. So right now I'm using a rank, so which means that if I go ahead and I remove this partition by, it will simply rank based off of date. Right? But if I go Control Z and with rank and I remove the order by, it's going to error out. However, if I then go over here and I go sum, and then I go daily amount, it will work without an order by. And here you can actually start to see some of the real advantages of window functions when it comes to doing analytics in SQL. So right here, you can see it's summed over category, but ignored date. And this is producing a very different result than if I, for example, was just going down here and grouping by category and date. So let's run that quickly. And I need to go over here, group by category and date. And I'll remove that comma. And let's run that just so you can kind of compare the results. So as you can see, different value. So that's the real advantage of a window function. All right, transitioning into what a window frame is in the context of a window function. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's really much simpler than you might think. A window frame is just essentially a way of controlling which rows are visible to the window function. And I keep on saying window, but you got to bear with me. You can essentially think of the window frame as kind of a sliding window that moves with the rows row by row. So jumping back into the computer, here I have the basic syntax of a window function that is using a Windows frame right down here. As you can see, we still have our function, we still have our over, we still have a partition by and an order by, but then we have this new statement down here where it's saying, hey, either rows or range between either and then a start time and an end time. And the start time and end time are defining our window frame boundaries. So we have a few different options as to what our window frame boundaries can be. So let me go ahead and let me paste these down here. So we first have unbound preceding, which says, hey, from the first row in the partition. So in this case, right down here, it would be the first row right here from blouse. We have the current row, which means it's the current row that the window function is currently operating against. We have n preceding, so that's the total n number of rows or value range before the current one. And then we have n following, which is the total n number of rows or values after the current one. So let's take a look at our example over here and let's do some quick editing. The goal of the statement that I want to create is for every single row, I want Databricks to look 2 rows back and then include the current row. So we get a kind of a 3-row moving window frame. So let's go ahead and let's edit this SQL statement so it does that. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to get rid of category from our statement right here. And I'm going to keep date actual. And then I'm going to bring in our daily amount still. And right here, I'm going to sum daily amount over, and I'll get rid of the partition by, so I say order by date actual. And then I will go rows between, and we'll go 2 rows back. So we'll go 2 preceding. I'm going to misspell preceding a few times and current row. So what this does is this sums the daily sales amount over date actual 2 rows back and then up to the current row, which should give us a 3-row sum. So let's see how this actually works. So here we are. Yep, not summing that. But then here, right, you can see, okay, it's summing 280. But then here, when we get here, it should go 3 rows back. And that does seem to be what it's doing. So this value right here is the sum of these 3 rows. Now going down back over here to our basic syntax, you might have noticed that I'd said, hey, it could be either rows or range. So let's try and take a look at what range is doing and make the difference between rows and range really crystal clear. And we'll start by taking a look at this example that we had written before. You see, the order by here is what's controlling what's actually in the frame, right? So rows is counting kind of the physical rows based off of the order by. The range statement counts based off of the values in your order by column. So instead of calculating by essentially this number over here, it calculates by this actual date. So in this case, right, it would calculate based off of 2022, 03, 31. So let's go ahead and let's edit this example over here to use range instead of rows. So I'm going to go backspace, and I'm going to go range between, and I'll go interval 1 days preceding and current row. So what this is going to do is it's going to, for 1, sum everything that has a value of 331. So let's run this and let's see how our results change. So it's running. And as you can see right here, for 1, it's coming up with that exact same value. And this 96716,245 should be the sum of this entire value right here. And this right here, this 101,683.85 should be the sum of all of this because there's nothing before 331. All right, so now let's run through some quick examples, starting with a 7-day moving average. And we're going to do that by category. So let's go ahead and let's edit the SQL so it can go ahead and calculate that average. So I'm going to change this to an average. I'm going to change this 1 to a 7, right? Because it's going to be a 7-day moving average from 7 days before and current row. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add category back into this query. So I'll bring category over here. I'll bring category down into the order by, and then I'll go ahead and add partition by back over here, and I'll go partition by category. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's run this. And as you can see, we now have a 7-day moving average, right? Window frames are super useful. Okay, let's switch this one back to our running sum. So let's go ahead and we'll keep category here, keep order by date actual, and then we'll go ahead and we'll change this from range back to rows, and then we'll say between, and we want our first row, which is unbound preceding, to our current row. So we'll go and we'll remove this. And we'll leave this right here, and we need to change this one back to a sum. So this should produce a running total, and let's see if it does. So we're running, and there we are, back into a running total. So just to recap, a window frame defines how far back a window function actually looks when executing. Rows counts the total number of rows when it runs. Range actually looks at the values, so it's both time and value aware. I hope you learned something in this video. If you did, go ahead and subscribe and give it a thumbs up because it really helps the channel grow. I hope you have a good rest of your day.